Hello and welcome to a new episode of Everstage Go to Masters. We converse with sales comp and GTM leaders from some of the most successful companies today and learn from their unique stories. Joining us today is Shiv Walia, Director of Sales Compensation from A Place for Mom. Shiv, thanks for joining us. Could you start by telling listeners a bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. And a big hello to everyone who's joining in. My name is Shiv Walia. I lead sales conversation at a place for mom. I have been in the world of sales conversation for around 5 years now, but I've been in the GTM space for 12 years as I started out in sales operations. My background is in engineering. I got my undergrad in computer engineering and I worked at Accenture as a programmer for a couple of years. Then I got my MBA from Michigan State, and after that, I joined Dell Computers, and that's where I started my journey in the world of GTM and sales ops. I was at Dell for 5 years, and I did various roles in sales operations. And after that, I moved to Mindbody, and it's a SaaS company in the wellness space. And at some point, Mindbody acquired ClassPass, which is in the same space, but that's B2B. That's actually B2C. So there's a good experience of doing both B2B and B2C in sales ops and sales comp. And that's actually the company where I transitioned from my sales ops job to being in sales compensation. And now at a place for mom, I lead the sales compensation team here. And NAPFM it's a US based company. It's in the senior living industry space, which is closely related to healthcare. And the company helps. What the company does is that we help uh, people who are looking for senior living facilities for their parents and their loved ones, and we help them in finding these communities.
Gotcha. And even it's very diverse in over the years. So, which early experiences most shape how you think about sales compensation as a strategic lever, and not just a payout mechanism, Shiva?
Yeah, I think I think very early on, I realized how a bad sales comp plan can actually lead to attrition and impact rep morale. And that actually, even when I was at Dell in a sales ops role, I could see how having a comp plan which is not motivating people enough, it leads to attrition. And that was a company where there were thousands of sellers, and if you don't ensure that it's driving people the right way, a lot of attrition could happen. So just seeing how much of a role it plays in keeping reps and ensuring that they're motivated, it goes a long way by doing that right. And I was another thing is like it shows you what I learned early on is that what people will focus on the most is what they're paid on. If you're paying a person for product A, uh, but do you expect them to do something else? They're not going to do that. They'll do mostly what they get paid on, and knowing that helps you as a company to set the right strategy.
Got it, got it. And you've actually owned end-to-end comp cycles across multiple businesses, verticals, and regions. So, when you design a compensation plan today, what, according to you, are the non-negotiable principles that you'd ensure it drives the right behavior, while it's still staying simple and scalable?
I would say the biggest thing is ensuring that you have end-to-end clarity across all the stakeholders, including HR and finance, especially the sales team. As what I've seen is that if everyone's not fully bought into how you do things, how the picture is made, it could cause problems. So all the sellers need to know what is the reporting you're using, what the main report being used. It should be a shared report, across teams, and there needs to be a sales compliant document that everyone, ideally everyone has a copy and has signed it and knows all the rules, and you have a structure in place of what you do with exception cases and stuff like that. So that end-to-end clarity, I feel like, is the most important thing. And apart from that, I would say ensuring that it aligns with the company goals or your sales team goals. Because what you don't want to happen is that the company is hitting its goals and the sales team is not, or vice versa. And that just, it creates a problem that you don't want to have. And lastly, I would add, and this is a thing I see happen like quite a bit is you don't is make sure you don't confuse sales compensation and sales performance management, because as part of SPM you can track a lot of things like dials and outreach and all the things that a sales rep is required to do. But from a sales comp perspective, I think it should be simple and scalable. I i, I normally try to make sure that it's not more than three or four main KPIs that they go after, because otherwise it really dilutes like what they need to do, and, and just keeping your focus on the main things and measuring those.
Got it, got it. And how do you think about aligning quotas and pay mix with real world capacity, especially given with leadership pressure, growth targets, and market realities always don't line up? So how do you, think about it?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like over there, what I do is I put my focus on data and strategy. One is ensure you have the data. If the finance team is doing it top down of what the goal needs to be, the sales op or rev ops or my team in sales comp is doing a bottoms up and kind of matching those two, and ensuring that if we have a vision, we we can see how it plays out. And I myself in the past ensure that every time we are going into a new year or we're adding a new product or something and we have this big and audacious goals, I kind of map it out and show the analytics and even show just like having a graph that shows here is where the rep productivity is now and that's where we are planning to be. A- and does that make sense? As I remember, there was one time in the past where we had, it was a new year and we had acquired a couple of new companies and the productivity was expected to go up. But as I showed it visually that one person is doing, let's say, 20 sales in December and we're expecting it to be 40 sales in January. It seems plausible in theory, but when you see it in a graph, then you realize that yep, we actually can't just like 2x overnight. It's going to take some ramp time and all those things. So being able to show that, I think it kind of goes a long way. And yeah, but I've seen in the past where like leadership pressure is a lot, and basically what I do there is just I try to create the right picture of of, of where do we stand right now, and what's plausible, and if we do X Y Z, what kind of outcomes it could lead to, so that whoever is the decision maker has all the things that they need to make the final decision.
Got it, got it. And sitting right at the intersection of sales, finance, HR, and GTM leadership, what have you found most effective in building alignment and trust across the different stakeholders? Now, especially given compensation decisions, like you mentioned earlier, it directly impacts the rep morale, impacts the attrition, and direct impact on revenue and cost of sales as well.
Yeah. Oh yes. Building trust is the key thing, and I feel like in my world, it's asking you to speak a lot of different languages fluently. You know, finance cares about cost, and HR cares about equity and rep morale and attrition. Sales team obviously cares about like selling, and our comp team has its own goals. So they just with all these things, I think my main thing is that one, I try to create a shared framework. Is that everybody needs to know what piece of the puzzle they're solving, how everything comes together. In case you're doing benchmarking, that comes from HR. If the sales team is doing their goals and is figuring out like what's a good sales goals, is providing that picture of that if you want to achieve this goal, this is how the quotas are going to look like, and how that compares to the past. How is the team going to take it and stuff like that, and also working with the finance team, ensuring that they kind of understand that as they're doing a top-down modeling or forecasting, keep in mind how we expect our hiring and attrition. Are we adding new teams? Are we expanding to new regions? How are we going to scale? So yeah, just having a framework where everything is being defined and being followed. Another thing I do is just, I think with stakeholders at the sales team is ensure that there is through and through transparency, especially with the sellers. I don't want to surprise them with like something new that's not expected. And if you are regularly having conversation with the sales team, and you're sharing what you're doing and sharing with leaders, so a lot of times targets are going up and leaders question that. I always make sure that I have all the data, all the strategy notes of the what and why, and that way someone asks, like, that's a crazy goal or it's too much, I can actually explain how we're thinking about it, and also question those who are making the decisions, that we can't just improve things overnight. If we are having bigger goals, we need to be able to explain if it's because of a new M&A having better features, like how it's all coming together. As I have seen that, especially with sales reps and managers, the more transparent you are, the better it is for you in terms of selling a comp plan and ensuring that everyone's like bought in and is excited about what they're expected to do.
Absolutely. And what are the common mistakes that companies usually make when scaling or changing compensation models? And how do you think leaders, can avoid breaking the motivation during these transitions?
Yeah. I think one big mistake is 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 looking at sales comp in a silo. If you just care about the comp curve and stuff like that, and you don't think about the targets and the territories and how you have like different rules, then uh, you might get into a situation where you have a really good pay curve, but no one's really hitting the gate, and that's because the quotas were really high, or if it's if it's the opposite, it's even worse, right? That it could be very easy goals, and everyone's hitting their accelerators, and you are achieving your goal, but your profit margin is being impacted as everyone's earning like very high accelerators. So all these things, I think your targets and territories and quota, uh, and and your comp plan, those need to be like thought of as one system. And if you're changing one thing, you kind of need to see how is this going to impact the rest of it. Uh, Another big thing is that, in sales comp, I always tell my team this is a very emotional topic. So, those who just think that, of course, sales comp is a lot of data and a lot of strategy, but you are telling someone how they're going to earn their paycheck at the end of the day. And that can be very, it's an emotional and psychological topic. And if you just look at the data part and you forget this one, it will be very hard to get buy-in, and that might create an environment where your sellers are not really motivated. So ensuring that you also keep in mind that you're dealing with a person's livelihood and how they make money, and ensure you are focusing on that, and even tweaking your message in case you're doing something which is completely different in terms of change management or adding something new, ensuring that it will be taken well. And I would say lastly is, one mistake I've made myself in the past is when doing something new, especially, is not thinking about the edge cases. Is that what happens 90% of the time, and you make very like rigorous rules around that, but the 10% that you don't think about, and then it happens in real time, and then you don't know what to do about that, and you need to reach out to a lot of other people and figure out what the rule needs to be, if that's an exception or it's a go forward rule. So ensuring that if you're changing something or you're doing something new, you are you've gone through all the edge cases and seeing what it could be, and and ensuring that all your rules are covering, I would say, 99% of the things that could happen.
I really loved your perspective on on the compensation front and how the human touch that you gave it to it. Looking ahead, where do you see AI having the most practical impact on sales compensation and sales operations? And whether the quota modeling, plan simulation, dispute resolution, or even productivity insights for that matter. Where do you see human judgment must still remain front and center, and AI should step in?
Mm. I mean, I think one big thing is definitely planning simulations. When you're doing quotas or territories, there are so many different ways that that you can slice things, and just and maybe there is where I can help in looking at so many different things and seeing, like, what are the different options you have, and in each of those, if anything happens, how can you change things and kind of react just real time in case you have unexpected attrition or an unexpected addition of new products. Is like, how do you very quickly change things, because it is a very touchy topic. I know in the past when I was in sales ops doing territories and planning, that would take a lot of time. Maybe, if you're doing that for 2026, you start at, at the mid of 2025 is when you start to create those territories, and then at times out of nowhere there's change of leadership, or you buy a new company and then everything is gone. It's like you have to start from scratch. So I feel like that's where AI can help. I do feel in terms of all the manual things and all the questions we get in our mailbox, and like questions from sales teams, that I would say, it, for my team it takes around 10 to it takes like 10 to 15% of their time is answering why my payout is like this, or like what you're looking at. And all those things are basically based on rules which are part of the comp plan. Is just that not everyone has gone through it and thoroughly looked at it, and is trying to figure out how the paycheck is coming about. I feel like since the rules are clear cut in a compliant document, AI can help to really answer those questions. That here, like you, as an example, you just came back from LOA, and because of that, you have no gate, A- and that's why you're earning like that. Because I've seen in my own experience, reps just want the payout to be correct. At times, even when you overpay them, they reach out and ask that I was not expecting this much. How come I'm earning this? Because they actually do care about ensuring that they know exactly how the comp plan works, and ensuring that they are tracking the same number. So helping with such things and explaining the rules, I feel like it could be a big thing. And lastly, one thing which I'm excited about. I don't know if we'll really get there. I feel like it's. I feel like it could be a really cool thing is to help with real time conversations. And that's just and it's. I feel like this is more. This is not on the sales comp team, but it's more for the sales team. 'Cause at the end of the day, sales are my customers. I think about all the different things that I can do and my team can do to help sales teams. I feel like if AI can help sales reps who are talking to customers to guide them what to say and what is going to help them to sell better, that's actually going to increase their sales and increase productivity and just create more efficiencies. So I know, but I feel like there are some ways to go there, but it's one of the exciting opportunities of how AI can help you in real time.
And where do you think humans' judgment should still remain the core shift?
That I mean, yes. One, I feel like humans, especially in a topic like sales comp, it's they have to remain. W- One, I would say is just because sales comp is a topic where you expect pinpoint accuracy. I can't in finance you can be off by some units or some dollars, and there's a bit of a approximation that flies. In sales comp, everything's got to be correct to the dollar. So ensuring that you are kind of like doing the double checks and everything is correct just before everything is stamped. I feel like that aspect is going to be there. And other small things like dealing with exceptions and trade-offs. Of course, at times there's a case where a person went out on leave or on PTO and another person helped out, and you're trying to figure out who gets credit. If you go by the rule, it's the person who closed the deal. That AI can do that, but at times there's this case where it is okay to double and triple pay because everyone put in the effort, and only a human can make that judgment call. Is that did the person who closed it do more, o- or the other person did, and they should get like an equal share, or it's more one the other. So like I feel like some decisions are based on your gut and are going to impact rep morale, and those can't and even should not be taken by AI. It's the person who is responsible should make that call and ensure that it does the right thing.
As we see everything shifting more complex and data driven, and also AI shaping up, what should sales comp and RevOps leaders start preparing from now to stay ahead of the curve for the next few years?
One, I mean, like talking about territories, I feel like helping. 'Cause I remember I used to spend a lot of time on this. I feel like in the future, AI can help with doing things like territories dynamically, because like that's it's always a big lift, and if you're able to tell what makes more sense at one point, that can actually increase efficiency even as a seller, because you're not just bound by a static piece of the pie and that's your focus. If there is an opportunity to do more, and we can easily see where that is, I feel like that's going to really uh, increase their productivity. And another thing I would say, which I know is kind of a big thing being talked about today, is predictive lead scoring. Is that of course right now we pay the same for any two deals that you close, as long as that's a territory. Any two deals are giving you the same quota attainment. But in reality, there is one deal where it was an inbound, and we know the customer really wants this, and maybe even it's part of a chain that has like 10 locations, and you're trying to sell to the 10th one. That's going to be a very easy sell, right? It's almost like it's a done deal because it's your own customer, and they're just adding a new location. Or it could be like you're trying to sell to a mom and pop, where it's a person who is just like testing the waters and try to buy something. That is a much more difficult selling thing. So right now they're both paid the same. If we could have this predictive scoring of what's easy, and that's going to take you less time, and you're going to close that fast. Well, this other thing, one, if it's harder, we can maybe pay you more on it. It's like a 1.5x based on this, because it's a small mom and pop. It seems like it's going to be very hard to close this, and if you close this, you kind of deserve more. It's like it helps us on the comp side to motivate them the right way, and it helps them to know that, okay, this is going to be much harder. I need to have a plan. I need to know what to say at one point, and how to, if they have any things that they are not sure about, or are confused about, how can I help them make a decision? So just that kind of predictive scoring of what's easy and what's not, I feel like that's going to go a long way. And I guess in the long run, AI could also help with having lesser sellers. If you just help with decision making, uh, like if I'm trying to buy something for my company, I can use AI to really figure out what are the best options out there, and really just like focus on a couple of things, on a couple of companies I need to go for. That way, I think it creates efficiencies everywhere. The number of companies I'm looking at is less. I completely know who is going to serve my needs, and that we just need like lesser sellers. So I feel like that could be the future of AI in sales and sales comp. But yeah, I don't know when and where, at one point that could be.
Fair enough. And are there any books, resources, or communities that you'd recommend for someone who's looking to grow a career in the space? Sure.
Books. Well, I don't think I've actually read any books which are in sales comp, but one, yeah, because that's just, I mean, it's very analytical, and it's data, right? I'll be very bored if I had a book which is about sales comp. I would recommend a book called that's called Drive. It's about what motivates us as human beings. And I feel like that really kind of helped me understand how we think and how any any seller would think about what motivates them and drives them. I feel like that was a very interesting read and is applicable to our work. In terms of communities, I would say, there are, first of all, podcasts are a really good way of just learning. Each podcast has its own own topic, and based on what you're doing, you can try to figure out what can I learn from this. I was part of this community called RevOps Co-op. It was free. It's paid now, uh, but I feel like I made some friends there. I learned a lot as getting into sales ops and sales comp, and people were like really sharing ideas, and that was cool. And I also look at LinkedIn, and I connect with other leaders, other people who are in the GTM space. I feel like people are always welcome to answer any questions or provide their input if you're trying to solve something. So I feel like just I would really say trying to reach out to a community is really helpful if you're trying to grow more or just trying to solve something.
Fair enough. And if you were to give three pieces of advice to someone who wants to build long-term impact in sales comp and DevOps space, what would that be?
I would say number one, idiot by said before, I feel like this is a very emotional topic, and so like always keeping in mind that there is a human at the other end of this, and ensuring that anything you do is impacting someone, and keeping that in mind. I feel like that is kind of important. And then and and something to go along with that is that do invest in relationships. Obviously it's a lot of data and strategy, but if you have the right relationships, it's going to help you to make your work easier. uh, One thing I learned early on is that if you're in the world of GTM, it's good to get comfortable with ambiguity, because there is, especially if you're in the startup world, which I was at some point, there is just a lot of different things you need to handle. Anyone have the answers. So, just being good with ambiguity and working through it is really going to help you. And something similar to that, then the last thing I would say is you need to trust your gut and make a decision. And I felt like I learned that the hard way, because sometimes I would just take so much time and trying to make something perfect and have the perfect execution. And by the time I get to it, it's kind of too late, because so just keeping in mind that failure is okay. Everybody makes mistakes as long as you're learning from it. I've learned a lot from my mistakes. So it's only I've tried myself. Yeah, so just make a decision that has some logic to it, a- and trust your gut and make it, and see where that takes you.
Sounds beautiful. And well, that brings us to the end of this insightful episode of Go to Masters. A big thank you to Shiv for sharing his experiences and perspective on sales commission, strategy, and the future of GTM. Remember, you can tune in every week to learn from leaders driving hypergrowth companies across the globe. Go to Masters is brought to you by Everstage, your trusted partner for transforming the way businesses handle sales compensation. I'm your host, signing off.